Ultimately, this is not about sanctioning. It is about protecting individual and community health, stated the president of Penn State University. During the coronavirus pandemic, universities across the nation were forced to make a decision regarding students' return to campus. To ease students and parents into coming back to campus, many universities created what anthropologist Hugh Gusserson calls fantasy documents. These documents refer to the COVID-19 plans made by university officials. As Gusserson writes, they look perfectly rational on paper, but fail to take into account the messiness of actual human behavior and the stubborn persistence of ingrained cultural patterns. This was the case at Penn State. Throughout the semester, President Barron sent numerous emails about testing information and the COVID-19 changes to the Student Code of Conduct. However, despite numerous student gatherings, the university never closed down and the parties never stopped. Instead, President Barron sent an email detailing the COVID-19 regulations for the previously renounced Big Ten football season. It is no secret that football plays a major role in bonding the Penn State community. However, it is also a great economic influence for the north central Pennsylvania area. Though the commencement of Big Ten football provided economic relief to the local area, at what cost? When I first began studying this community, I imagined an underground system for which students organized and threw parties. I was wrong. Penn State is popularly known as a party school, where on most days of the week, students can be found at bars or parties downtown. However, football season brings about a special genre of parties known as day parties or darties. Despite the university's efforts to limit gatherings by prohibiting tailgating and visitors from coming to campus, students still gathered in their apartments and bars downtown. The opening weekend of Penn State football, a large student gathering took place at an apartment complex in downtown State College. Many students in this video were unmasked. Members in the community had a wide range of reactions to the viral video. University officials reprimanded the students who attended the gathering, stating those identified in the video will be fined and given referrals. However, a few fellow students felt differently. Rather than denouncing the students shown partying in the video, this individual made an Instagram post in which he blamed the student who took the video for trying to, quote, ruin the lives of the students depicted.
Because he's afraid of the spread of COVID. You might be too dumb to understand this, but those kids out there all aren't at risk and are just trying to enjoy their lives because they're not afraid of a virus that kills less than 1% of people. If you're just salty that you weren't invited and you'll never get invited to another college party, just admit it. Let people live their lives and you should get a life.
This individual wasn't alone in their attitude towards students seeking to hold their peers accountable. A resident at the Rise that weekend was also shamed for wearing a mask in her apartment building. Residents in my apartment's group chat would often express similar sentiment against students who filed noise complaints against them. Throughout the semester, a growing sense of entitlement seemed to characterize students' response to the consequences given for throwing gatherings. One resident even went as far as to threaten my apartment's management with a lawsuit. There seemed to be a domino effect of students threatening the building's management. Residents would often message in the group chat that if their music is too loud, they would prefer a knock on their door from a fellow resident than a knock from the building's management or police. I noticed the majority of students requesting these courtesies were white. This could be because Penn State is a predominantly white institution. However, when students of color would message in the group chat, the messages would always be unrelated to parties. I found it incredulous that these partier residents felt it was fair for other residents to be courteous to them, making sure they won't get in trouble, instead of simply keeping the volume at a lower level or not throwing gatherings during a pandemic in the first place. In addition to students' entitlement, their ignorance of the effects of their behavior was also a key factor in their reason for partying. A close friend of mine was one of the students who threw and attended parties this semester. He believed that because the death rate among our age group was low, there wasn't anything to fear. Because he lived with other healthy young adults, he wasn't putting anyone at risk. He, like other partier students during this pandemic, chose to believe his behavior had no effect on people outside of his bubble, and would not let the pandemic impede on his college experience. Regardless of the university's efforts, the residents' dissatisfaction, or the conflict among residents, there is no doubt that Penn State students have caused a spike in cases in Centre County. And while the university made testing easily accessible to students, that privilege was not extended to permanent residents in Centre County. This phenomenon can also be seen on a larger scale in the United States, with more privileged populations having better access to healthcare and testing than less privileged populations. According to the Centre County COVID-19 dashboard, there is a clear increase in the number of cases starting in late August, when students first arrived. There have been an additional 12 deaths since students first returned to campus. Though the partier students raise major concern among the State College community, there is a larger but more silent population of students who abide by the borough's COVID-19 restrictions. Among them is my roommate, who believes the students partying are irresponsible and have a complete disregard for people outside of their own lives, end quote. Because my roommate and I are the only people we can actually hang out with in person this year, we often talk about how frustrating it is for the partying students to be living their lives at the expense of someone else's. Non-partier students are making sacrifices to end this pandemic. They feel they need to sacrifice their social lives and the quality of education because of the students who choose to ignore the safety protocols. Though it is often frustrating to see our apartment's group chat talking about parties and gatherings, there is a comfort in knowing that the majority of the other 200 members of the group chat are thinking and behaving similar to us.